The tragic events began on July 15, 2015, when Stephen Freeman, 26, and Johnny Freeman, 32, embarked on what should have been the perfect honeymoon cruise. The newlyweds boarded in Miami, Florida, joining 2,500 other passengers for a Caribbean voyage with scheduled stops in Mexico, Belize, and Honduras. Stephen and Johnny's romance had started just 8 months earlier in Atlantis, Georgia. Stephen worked as a senior mechanical engineer at Thompson Engineering Solutions, where his methodical approach to commercial building systems had earned him rapid promotion. Johnny held a position as lead researcher at Biotech Industries, focusing on experimental drug development. Despite presenting as a woman publicly, Johnny identified as a transgender man, a fact known only to his closest circle, including Stephen. Their relationship began at a corporate networking event in November 2014 and quickly became serious. By March 2015, they married at the Hamilton Ridge Hotel in downtown Atlanta. The ceremony, attended by 45 guests, demonstrated their financial success, with Stephen having recently received a substantial promotion and maintaining significant savings. The Majestic Horizon cruise aligned perfectly with the couple's lifestyle preferences. They occupied cabin 1264 on Deck 9, a premium stateroom with a private balcony. The ship, launched in 2013, offered multiple restaurants, entertainment venues, and the popular Celestial Casino. On July 22, their sixth day at sea, the ship docked in Cozumel, Mexico. Tour guide Maria Hernandez confirmed that Stephen and Johnny participated in a reef exploration excursion that afternoon. They purchased several local artworks and dined at La Pescadora restaurant. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Staff members observed them ordering multiple bottles of wine while discussing their upcoming travel plans. The couple returned to the ship at approximately 7:30 p.m., passing through security and returning to their cabin to prepare for evening activities. Security logs documented their departure from their room at 9:15 p.m. as they headed toward the casino. Within hours, their honeymoon would become the subject of a criminal investigation. The investigation began at 8 a.m. the following morning when maintenance worker Thomas Rodriguez discovered a large bloodstain on a structural overhang beneath the couple's balcony. After Rodriguez alerted his supervisor, security personnel conducted an immediate search of nearby cabins. Every passenger was accounted for except Stephen Freeman. Security officers John Malone and Deborah Cooper found Johnny wandering the corridors of Deck 9, displaying clear signs of intoxication. Upon escorting him back to cabin 1264, they observed his confused state regarding Stephen's absence. The cabin showed signs of disturbance with overturned furniture, broken glasses, and blood drops on the bedsheets. Ship's medical officer Dr. Patricia Wong examined Johnny, documenting multiple bruises on his arms and torso, though he claimed no memory of acquiring these injuries. Captain Michael Anderson declared Stephen Freeman missing at sea by 9 a.m., initiating an investigation that would eventually involve law enforcement agencies from 3 countries. The events of that night would prove far more disturbing than anyone initially suspected. The investigation revealed that Stephen and Johnny had attracted attention throughout their voyage for their apparent wealth and generous spending habits. Several passengers later reported seeing Stephen display large amounts of cash while gambling, and Johnny had made multiple expensive purchases in the ship's boutiques. These details would later become crucial as investigators pieced together the events leading to Stephen's disappearance. Initial witness statements painted a picture of a happy couple enjoying their honeymoon, making their eventual separation all the more puzzling. Ship staff who had interacted with them over the previous 6 days reported no signs of discord or tension. Their cabin steward noted that they spent considerable time on their private balcony, often ordering room service and appearing affectionate toward each other. As the ship's security team secured the crime scene and gathered preliminary evidence, they began to understand that they were dealing with something far more complex than a simple case of a passenger going overboard. The blood evidence, signs of struggle, and Johnny's unexplained injury suggested a violent confrontation had occurred in cabin 1264. The question that would drive the investigation forward was whether Stephen Freeman's disappearance was a tragic accident or something far more sinister. The investigation reconstructed Stephen Freeman's final hours through multiple witness accounts and ship records. After returning from Cozumel, Stephen and Johnny began their evening at the ship's main restaurant. The couple then proceeded to the Celestial Casino around 9:30 p.m., where they separated to play different games. At the craps table, Stephen met Brian Carter, a marketing executive from Dallas. Meanwhile, Johnny played blackjack alongside three Miami residents, cousins Eric and Jamal Boyd, and their friend Darius Evans. The group eventually converged, and casino staff noted their substantial alcohol consumption throughout the night. Stephen demonstrated particular success at craps, winning approximately $3,000. He celebrated by buying drinks for his new acquaintances. The casino's closing time at 2 a.m. prompted the group to relocate to the Celestial Lounge on Deck 13. Bartender Anthony Walsh reported serving multiple rounds of premium spirits to the party over the next hour. The pleasant atmosphere changed around 3:15 a.m. when Johnny and Stephen engaged in what witnesses described as an intense argument. While the exact subject remained unclear, multiple guests observed Johnny leaving the lounge alone, appearing visibly upset. Stephen remained with his new companions, continuing to drink heavily. By 3:30 a.m., Stephen had become notably intoxicated. Brian Carter, along with the Boyd cousins and Evans, decided to help him return to his cabin. The group's journey from Deck 13 to Deck 9 drew attention from several passengers due to their loud behavior and Stephen's unstable condition. The subsequent events became subject to contradicting accounts. Brian Carter initially stated that the group merely helped Stephen into bed, removed his shoes, and departed around 3:45 a.m. However, Wesley Parker, occupying the adjacent cabin, provided investigators with a markedly different version of events. Parker reported being awakened at approximately 4 a.m. by loud cheering and what he described as ritualistic chanting coming from Stephen's cabin. These sounds were followed by the distinct noise of furniture being overturned and glass breaking. Around 4:15 a.m., Parker heard someone repeatedly saying good night, followed by the cabin door opening and multiple sets of footsteps in the hallway. Upon checking through his peephole, Parker observed three men walking away from Stephen's cabin. He noted that despite their departure, the commotion inside the room continued. At precisely 4:20 a.m., Parker heard what he described as a heavy impact, a sound investigators later determined likely coincided with Stephen going overboard. The ship's motion sensors recorded a significant disturbance on the starboard side at 4:22 a.m., directly beneath the balcony of cabin 1264. This timing aligned with Parker's account of the loud thud. Furthermore, oceanographic experts later confirmed that the currents and wind conditions at that location and time would have carried a body in the direction where Stephen's remains were eventually discovered. Further investigation revealed discrepancies in Brian Carter's original statement. While he claimed the group left at 3:45 a.m., ship security logs showed multiple entries to cabin 1264 between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. When confronted with this evidence, Carter modified his account, suggesting that some members of the group might have returned to check on Stephen, though he maintained he personally did not. The Boyd cousins and Evans provided similar stories during initial questioning, each claiming they left Stephen's cabin before 4 a.m. However, their statements contained inconsistencies regarding who exactly stayed behind and for how long. These contradictions became crucial elements in the subsequent criminal investigation. Ship staff later discovered Stephen's expensive watch was missing, along with the cash he had won at the casino. The investigation into Stephen Freeman's disappearance grew more complex as contradictory accounts emerged. At 4:30 a.m., security officers John Malone and David Thompson discovered Johnny unconscious in a Deck 9 hallway. Upon waking him, they noted his severe intoxication and helped him back to cabin 1264. Johnny appeared disoriented and unable to answer basic questions about Stephen's whereabouts. At 8 a.m., Johnny departed for his scheduled spa appointment, showing no apparent concern for Stephen's absence. This behavior later became a significant point of interest for investigators, who questioned how someone could remain unaware of their spouse's disappearance despite the obvious signs of disturbance in their cabin. The investigation revealed a complex series of events between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. Ship logs documented multiple entries to cabin 1264 during this period, directly contradicting the group's initial claims about leaving before 4 a.m. The electronic lock system recorded 5 separate entries using the cabin key card. Wesley Parker's testimony provided crucial details about these moments. From his adjacent cabin, Parker heard a distinct male voice twice demand, "Hey, why are you all dressed up like that?" followed by sounds of physical confrontation. This interaction occurred around 4:10 a.m., mere minutes before Stephen's presumed time of going overboard. Brian Carter's subsequent questioning revealed additional details. While maintaining his initial departure time, he suggested that some group members might have returned to check on Stephen. Neither the boy cousins nor Darius Evans acknowledged making these return visits in their first statements. When pressed about this discrepancy, each provided conflicting explanations for their whereabouts. The condition of cabin 1264 indicated a violent struggle had occurred. Investigators found overturned furniture, including an upended desk chair near the balcony door. Broken glass tumblers lay scattered across the floor, some fragments containing traces of blood. The bed sheets showed significant blood smears, later confirmed through DNA analysis as Stephen's blood. Stephen's Omega Seamaster watch, valued at $12,000, had disappeared. This detail suggested a potential robbery motive, though the level of violence indicated the incident went beyond mere theft. The blood spatter pattern pointed to an intense physical altercation beginning near the cabin's entrance and moving toward the balcony. Dr. Patricia Wong examined Johnny's injuries during a medical evaluation. The bruises on his body showed different stages of development, suggesting multiple incidents throughout the night. When questioned about these injuries, Johnny consistently maintained his inability to remember the events clearly due to alcohol consumption. The boy cousin's testimony raised particular concerns. Eric Boyd initially stated they all left together at 3:45 a.m. However, Jamal Boyd later admitted returning to the cabin alone around 4:05 a.m., claiming he needed to retrieve a forgotten phone. Ship records showed no report of a lost or found phone during this period. This inconsistency, combined with the timing of Jamal's alleged return, became a crucial focus of the investigation. The testimonies of ship staff added another layer of complexity. Multiple crew members reported seeing groups of men entering and exiting Deck 9 during the critical timeframe, but their descriptions varied significantly. Some mentioned seeing 3 men leaving together, while others recalled individuals moving separately through the corridors. Security Officer Thompson noted unusual activity in the hallway outside cabin 1264 between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. The ship's corridor patrol logs indicated multiple instances of loud noises and guest complaints during this period, though no immediate action was taken due to the common occurrence of late-night disturbances on cruise ships. As investigators compiled these accounts, they faced the challenge of reconciling widely varying testimonies with physical evidence. The timeline suggested that Stephen Freeman's disappearance involved a violent confrontation with multiple potential participants, rather than an accidental fall overboard. The investigation shifted focus as questions arose about Johnny's involvement in Stephen's disappearance. While his severe intoxication at 4:30 a.m. initially appeared to support his claims of memory loss, crew members reported concerning observations about his behavior after regaining sobriety. Several staff members noted his unusually calm demeanor when informed of Stephen's disappearance, contrasting sharply with typical reactions in similar situations. Lead investigator Michael Torres found particular interest in Johnny's physical condition. Medical examination revealed extensive bruising across his arms and torso, with patterns suggesting defensive wounds rather than injuries from falling. Dr. Patricia Wong's medical report indicated the bruises showed directional force consistent with physical combat. When confronted with these findings, Johnny maintained his explanation of multiple alcohol-related falls throughout the night. The investigation also revealed inconsistencies in Johnny's account of his movements. While he claimed to have headed directly back to their cabin after leaving the nightclub, multiple witnesses placed him in different locations throughout the ship between 3:15 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. Passenger Rachel Anderson reported seeing someone matching Johnny's description engaged in an intense conversation with Jamal Boyd near the ship's stern around 3:45 a.m. Forensic analysis of cabin 1264 provided crucial evidence of violence. Blood spatter patterns indicated multiple impact points, suggesting a prolonged physical altercation rather than an isolated incident. The overturned furniture formed a path toward the balcony, with the heaviest damage concentrated near the balcony door. Investigators discovered Stephen blood not only on the sheets but also on the balcony railing. The investigation uncovered additional details about the couple's relationship. Several cruise staff members reported overhearing arguments between Stephen and Johnny during the previous days. Bartender Anthony Walsh recalled a heated exchange on their fourth night at sea during which Stephen expressed concerns about financial matters. However, these accounts contrasted sharply with other witnesses who described them as affectionate and celebrating their recent marriage. Financial records revealed potential motives beyond relationship discord. Stephen had recently increased his life insurance policy to $2 million, naming Johnny as the sole beneficiary. Additionally, Stephen's winning streak at the ship's casino had netted him substantial cash money that remained unaccounted for after his disappearance along with his Omega watch. The Boyd cousins' involvement added another layer of complexity. Investigation revealed prior connections between Jamal Boyd and Johnny through mutual business associates in Miami. When questioned about this relationship, both parties initially denied knowing each other before the cruise. This deception led investigators to scrutinize their interactions more closely, particularly the witness conversation near the ship's stern. Brian Carter's testimony provided additional context about the group's dynamics during their final hours together. He described increasing tension between Stephen and the others as the night progressed, particularly after Stephen began boasting about his casino winnings. Carter noted that both Johnny and Jamal Boyd seemed especially agitated by Stephen's behavior. The physical evidence in the cabin painted a clear picture of violence. Glass fragments from broken tumblers contained both Stephen blood and unidentified DNA samples. The position of bloodstains and overturned furniture suggested that multiple people were involved in the altercation. Most notably, investigators found 3 distinct blood types in the cabin, indicating that more than 2 people had sustained injuries during the confrontation. Dr. Wong's analysis of Stephen's blood patterns on the balcony railing suggested he faced his attacker when going overboard rather than accidentally falling. This detail, combined with the evidence of struggle inside the cabin, led investigators to conclude that Stephen's death resulted from deliberate action rather than misadventure. The investigation suffered a critical setback due to the Majestic Horizon security team's mishandling of cabin 1264. By the time Mexican authorities boarded the ship in Costa Maya, crucial evidence had been compromised. The cabin underwent routine cleaning, destroying potential DNA evidence and fingerprints. The ship's surveillance system had limited storage capacity, resulting in the automatic deletion of footage from the night in question. Without proper preservation of the crime scene, investigators lost valuable forensic evidence. Blood samples were contaminated, making DNA analysis inconclusive. The cabin's furniture had been rearranged, eliminating the possibility of accurate crime scene reconstruction. Ship staff had disposed of broken glass and other items that might have yielded crucial evidence. The cruise line's legal team moved swiftly to contain potential liability. They offered Johnny a substantial settlement in exchange for signing a non-disclosure agreement and waiving all rights to future legal action. Johnny accepted the offer, a decision that created a rift with Stephen's family. The Freemans viewed this settlement as evidence of the cruise line's attempt to suppress investigation into their son's death. The case took an unexpected turn when Mexican fishermen discovered human remains near Mahwah. Forensic analysis confirmed the body belonged to Stephen Freeman. The advanced decomposition complicated the examination, but medical examiners identified severe blunt force trauma to the skull. The injury pattern indicated Stephen had been struck with a solid object before entering the water, ruling out accidental death. Upon learning about Stephen remains, Johnny's behavior drew investigator attention. Rather than displaying grief or demanding justice, he appeared anxious and evasive. During questioning, he consistently redirected conversations away from the night of Stephen's death, maintaining his claim of alcohol-induced memory loss. This behavior pattern, combined with his documented injuries and reluctance to assist investigators, raised questions about his potential involvement. The FBI's involvement brought new resources to the investigation. Agents conducted extensive interviews with passengers and crew members. They analyzed ship records, financial transactions, and communications between key persons of interest. However, the compromised evidence and lack of cooperative witnesses hampered progress. The investigation revealed additional connections between the involved parties. Records showed multiple phone calls between Jamal Boyd and Johnny in the months before the cruise, contradicting their claims of meeting aboard ship. Financial records indicated unusual transfers between accounts linked to both parties, though the purpose remained unclear. The Boyd cousins and Darius Evans maintained their original statements despite inconsistencies. Brian Carter relocated to Europe shortly after the incident, making further questioning difficult. The ship's staff provided limited additional information, many having moved on to different vessels or leaving the industry entirely. Medical examiners determined Stephen died from a combination of blunt force trauma and drowning. The skull fracture pattern matched the type of injury typically caused by a heavy cylindrical object, possibly similar to the metal chair found near the cabin's balcony. However, without the actual weapon or uncompromised DNA evidence, prosecutors lacked sufficient evidence to bring charges. The investigation uncovered that Stephen had recently modified his will, making Johnny the primary beneficiary of his estate valued at several $1 million. This revelation, combined with the substantial cruise line settlement, provided a potential financial motive. However, circumstantial evidence alone proved insufficient for prosecution. As months turned into years, the case gradually faded from public attention. The FBI maintained an open file, but active investigations ceased without new leads or witnesses. Stephen's family continued their private investigation, hiring attorneys and private investigators, but achieved no breakthrough. The death of Stephen Freeman aboard the Majestic Horizon joined the list of unsolved cruise ship mysteries. While evidence pointed to murder, the compromised crime scene, conflicting testimonies, and lack of definitive proof prevented any arrests. The truth about what happened in cabin 1264 remained known only to those present that night, none of whom came forward with a complete story. The discovery of Stephen Freeman's remains led to renewed investigation efforts, driven by pressure from his parents, Thomas and Margaret Freeman. Their persistent advocacy resulted in formal charges against Johnny Freeman, culminating in a trial during summer 2019. The prosecution built their case around two primary theories. Lead prosecutor Amanda Richardson argued that Johnny orchestrated a deliberate deception, feigning extreme intoxication while carrying out a premeditated murder. This theory suggested Johnny struck Stephen with a heavy object before forcing him overboard, then created an alibi by appearing incapacitated in the hallway. The second theory stemmed from Wesley Parker's testimony about hearing someone question another person's attire. Prosecutors proposed that Johnny, who typically presented as female in public, had changed into male clothing that night, triggering a confrontation with Stephen. They argued this led to a violent altercation ending in Stephen's death. Medical examiner Dr. Robert Williams testified that Stephen's skull fractures indicated he was struck at least 3 times with significant force before entering the water. The prosecution emphasized that these injuries aligned with the evidence of struggle found in cabin 1264, including overturned furniture and blood spatter patterns. Defense attorney Michael Graves challenged the prosecution's case by highlighting the absence of physical evidence linking Johnny to Stephen's death. No murder weapon emerged during the investigation, and multiple witnesses confirmed Johnny's severe intoxication throughout the night. Ship staff and fellow passengers testified about helping an obviously impaired Johnny navigate the ship's corridors. The defense team introduced new evidence suggesting alternative suspects. Security footage showed Eric Boyd and Darius Evans laughing while reenacting someone going flying near the ship's railing. This video, recorded the morning after Stephen's disappearance, raised questions about their potential involvement. Additionally, the defense emphasized the missing Omega watch and casino winnings, suggesting robbery as a primary motive. The trial lasted 6 weeks, with testimony from over 40 witnesses. However, the prosecution struggled to overcome reasonable doubt. The jury deliberated for 3 days before returning a not guilty verdict, citing insufficient evidence to prove Johnny's direct involvement in Stephen's death. The verdict devastated the Freeman family. Thomas Freeman publicly declared, "The system failed our son." Margaret Freeman established a foundation advocating for improved cruise ship security measures and proper evidence preservation protocols. Following his acquittal, Johnny withdrew from public life. He relocated to the Pacific Northwest and married Gregory Bennett in 2020. When approached by journalists, Johnny maintains his original position about that night. "I remember bits and pieces, but not enough to say what happened." The FBI officially closed their investigation after the trial, despite protests from the Freeman family. The case file notes multiple persons of interest, but concludes that compromised evidence and conflicting testimonies prevent definitive conclusions about Stephen's death. The Boyd cousins and Darius Evans faced no charges, though questions about their involvement persist. Eric Boyd and Evans later admitted to making insensitive jokes about Stephen's death, but denied any direct involvement. Brian Carter, who had relocated to Europe, provided written testimony for the trial, but never returned to the United States. Stephen's parents continue their quest for answers through private investigators and legal challenges. They maintain active communication with maritime safety organizations and advocate for stricter protocols aboard cruise ships. Their efforts led to policy changes regarding evidence preservation and incident reporting in international waters. The death of Stephen Freeman remains officially classified as suspicious but unresolved. While the trial provided no definitive answers, it exposed significant flaws in cruise ship security protocols and evidence handling procedures. These revelations sparked industry-wide changes, though they came too late to bring justice in this case.